Hey, Hannah.
What's up, everybody, to another episode of The Mix with your boy, Anthony Douglas. So, before we start the podcast, okay, I do want to, I want to tell you that one of our good friends got into it was a car accident. It was really bad, and she has been in the hospital for about a month, I would say, or so. I'm not too sure, but it was really bad, and she's expected to make a recovery, but her going to school, that might have an effect on that. So, and she does not have enough funds, but we will put a GoFundMe link at the bottom in the description if you guys feel like donating. But if you can't donate, send your prayers. We'll always take those. And yes, that was my first message before we get into the podcast. So, with that being said, today's guest, we have today Latiya Gholar. Okay, what's up?
Hey, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good.
This
Welcome.
is exciting. Thank you. It's exciting. I'm glad to be here.
I've been chasing you down.
Of course you have, darling.
It's hard to catch you.
It is hard to catch me. I'm glad. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard that. It's hard to catch a fairy.
I haven't heard that, but I do know it's hard to catch you. You're a busy woman.
It's
So
true.
tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do.
Well, my name is Latiya Gholar, and I'm a fashion designer. And I've been doing that for the past 20 years. I have a brand called American Umma. We create dope covered apparel. I'm also a mother. I'm also a spiritual healer, I should say. Or like someone who helps assist people to the next stage of their lives. I like to say that I kind of the person that you meet at the crossroads. That's me.
Interesting. That's a lot of things.
It is a lot of things. That's who I am.
And I think that's also a smart answer. We are many things. A lot of people, they think of themselves as like, a few things, but not as many things as they could be. But out of all the things that you're doing, what do you find most passionate? I mean, you're obviously a fashion designer, a spiritualist, and so many different things. But what do you find most healing for you, in a sense?
What I find most healing for me is being myself. I know it sounds crazy and it may sound a little bit self-centered, but to be your true self actually takes a lot of courage. And so the thing I like most about just life in general is self-discovery. And that's the most important aspect of anything that I do, because everything else is superficial. It's like, Shakespeare said the world is a stage and you play your part, right? And so this world is just something to do, and it's only a reflection of what goes on in your inside world. So a lot of people focus on these outwardly things, which can go away at any given time. But what about yourself and that self journey? So although the fashion is fun, being a parent is fun. Learning, all these things are fun. But it's that continuous process and becoming who I am and growing as an individual that's actually one of my favorite things to do and the most important part of my life.
Wow. You, as far as your journey and coming to finding yourself, have you found yourself? Would you say that you have found that person, or are you still on the journey? Are you still searching for that person?
I think that life is a quest. And I think I found myself up until now. But, it's kind of like that saying, once you realize all the rules, the rules of the game, the rules change. And, whenever we get content, that's where we always have obstacles. And I think the part of the human experience is to discover what you can do. And I think, if you take like a piece of food or something and you just leave it there, it'll mold, it'll fester. And sometimes we get into a mode where we settle for certain things and we wonder why so many things in our life fester or they don't produce anything. And it's because you're not moving, you're not growing, you're not moving forward, you're not elevating, you're not evolving, you're not transforming. So you can have something that's going to sit in the pot and you can add something to it and it transforms to something else, or you could just leave it sitting there and it'll mold, right? Or you can add heat to it and it'll, cook and it'll, so we spend time, a lot of people just settle for comfortable instead of taking out time to explore themselves, to push the boundaries of what the human experience is really like.
So, yeah, you're right. You do have to find out who you are and what you're capable of. It's definitely, in my book, one of the reasons why we're here, or what we're supposed to be doing is figuring that out. Also, I think adding value to this thing called life, before you go too, it's like making your mark. Like, you go traveling, you see a whole bunch of landmarks and like people put like the little rocks on top of each other and they make their markings along the way, cutting into a tree. I feel as if like, if we didn't do that already, which we, humans already have, we scorched the earth and terraformed it and put cities on it and cement. But, what are we giving back to it? You know what I mean? Because stuff like that, we're taking away plants, animals, we're taking those things away. But
for sure,
what are we adding good to it? Is there a few things you could think about?
Yeah, like, we're really the caretakers of this planet. And if you look at human evolution and where we are in our development as humans and also civilization, we've come to a place where we've learned how to master and manipulate the forces of nature. It was a time when we learned how to manipulate iron and metal and the land. We used to be hunters and gatherers, and we learned about fire. And so all of these things that us working together as humans and civilization has produced some of the things that people probably could have never thought of. But in our quest for this materialism, we lost our connection to the earth and the spirit. And I think what you're saying now is this more conscious awakening of our positions as the caretakers of this planet. We do have a responsibility for that. And we all need to get in a place where we collectively care about where we, live. And just that disconnecting, a lot, it's really popular right now to seek out different forms of spirituality, whether it be psychedelics, joining a religion. A lot of people are moving away from that and starting to question a lot of things. And, I think it's an awakening going on in the world just because things are so far one way. Is, you can't have one extreme without the other. And I think that just having this one extreme about all materialism it's leaving humanity, especially Americans and Western civilizations, with this hole in their heart, that, in their spirit and their soul, where it's empty, and they're trying to find something to fulfill that, but the only thing they know is material. And no matter how much money you have or how many activities things you check off your list, if you're not whole within, then it's just gonna cause more depression and problems. And especially now during COVID, it's a huge mental health crisis, because we just been working and working and working and working, which is not natural really for us to do. But working, not having time to connect, having all of these non-natural distractions to actually keep us from dealing with ourselves. And I think for a lot of people, it actually gave them the time to ask themselves, what do I want? Who am I? And these questions are as old as time. We've always, as humans, wanted to know who we are. And so I personally took a quest to, delve into who I am.
Wow. What did you find out about yourself when you did that?
I found out that I was a good person. I mean, we all have flaws, and I think that, for a long time, I suffered with PTSD, and it was something that was personal, and it was something that for a long time I wasn't aware of. And with PTSD, especially complex PTSD, it's traumas that you might have, especially during childhood. And I think some people just assume that, traumas are experience that you have that's abusive, right? But it can be different things, like how a parent or grandparent may have belittled you because you didn't do something right. Or, you got that one whooping that just traumatized you and made you fearful. And, when we're children, we're exposed to things and we don't know where they come from. And a lot of times what you end up having is these irrational behaviors, because we learn from what we see and experience. And it's like, kids, their heads are sponges. So, even with war heroes, and they come back from war, and, and you might slam the kitchen cabinet, and, they think they're shell shocked, and it's the same with children and adults, and when they become adults. So I dealt with a lot of PTSD from things that I was exposed to as a child. And I didn't really know where that was coming from. I had a lot of anger, resentment, just a lot of negative feelings that I wasn't aware of. I was aware that I was doing them, but I thought it was me, I felt misunderstood for a long time. And it wasn't until I finally stopped everything and had time to myself where I actually was able to deal with a lot of aspects of my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you broke through several barriers. I feel like you have to do that to move forward, because some people, they have things that prevent them from finding out who they are and what they're capable of. And some people haven't experienced enough to be able to even deal with those sort of traumas, or something that just an experience that happened.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely crazy that, a lot of times, and especially in the Black community, with mental health issues, and, you become reactive, because your mind is stuck in this reactive part because you never really processed it. And so you react, and so now, like an irrational fear is like, if I got drunk off of tequila, okay, and I barfed all night, okay, and then I smelled tequila, it makes me want to throw up. That's not rational. If you smell tequila, it shouldn't make you want to throw up. But because you have this connection to it and you haven't processed that spirit experience, your stomach reacts to it because it has a memory that when I drink, that this is a survival mechanism. So a lot of times what happens is we have these traumatic experiences that never get processed, and they store in different parts of our bodies, our brains, and it starts to fester, and then you'll see people who have all of these different disease, which is, your body's not at ease. You see people dying of heart attacks and high blood pressure, and then they have all these family issues and heart attacks. And, like most people die of blood related diseases. Just think about that. Like how people are like, they say blood is thicker than water. I say, yeah, but people die of blood related diseases every day. And this toxicity that we end up having stored in our body, and how we end up reacting to these things. But what you can do is this process that I did was called a soul retrieval. And so the concept of soul retrieval is that, every time you experience trauma, a part of you breaks off and you move on so that you can survive. And it gets locked in this space and time. So a lot of us have inner child issues, and they got all these little parts of you just broken throughout time. And so, this can happen through a lot of different ways, through experiences, through partnerships. A lot of people have broken parts of their spirit from relationships, soul ties, people you're having intimate relationships with, abortions, car accidents, things like this, like a lot of different traumatic experiences that you have. And, so you end up with, at the end of the day, this broken person that's all fragmented, and you're trying to figure out why I can't think about stuff, why I can't keep my mind straight, why I'm having problems with my stomach, why I have these heart problems. And when you go inside yourself, you'll see that those things, those symptoms are really experiences that, in some religions texts, they'll try to tell you that these things are demons. And I think that's a really harmful thing to say, or to label somebody crazy, because ultimately what I found out through my self-discovery was that those things that I didn't like about myself or other people didn't like were the very things that were used to protect me, that were acting irrationally at this time. So at a period of time, say, you learn to protect yourself by, like, say a child grows up with a parent who is abusive, right? So when they go out in the world, they have to pretend that everything is okay. Okay, so they get locked in this thing where they pretend that everything is okay, but when they're home, they're a monster. You see what I mean? That's a program, a cycle they got locked into, not unknowingly. And they end up repeating this cycle because 78% of traumas are usually repeated. You see what I'm saying? And so maybe at that time, that was a good thing to help that child. Okay, but now that they're adults, it's problematic. And then people will see this person, well, this person is a demon. This is how they act. They're an evil person. When in actuality, that part of them was created to protect themselves. And now it's like, they're being, this person might be limited or labeled because of the very thing that protected them. So what I learned is that these bad behaviors, because I don't think that people are born bad. I think that people have experiences and then they end up having bad behaviors. If you look at serial killers and people who have these violent pasts, or you go into the prison system, when I worked in anti-recidivism, a lot of these kids grew up in, abusive households. And it was the only thing that they knew. So that was how they acted, and they had these criminal behaviors. But it's like, where did they learn it from? And now you're in this cycle of self-sabotage, because you're not really living your true self. You're living a program that somebody else did to you, and so that's what self-discovery is about. It's about going within and finding those programs that you didn't put there, those things that happened to you, having that experience, and then letting it go. Like people say, well, you just need to let it go. Some people don't know what they're letting go of. It's not really a fair thing to say. To let go, you have to go through. So you have to go and save these parts of you from the hell that you're in. Like hell is really just a state of mind, I'm sorry.
You've got me going through my head right now, going through a few different things. But I'm curious. So how did you become so spiritual in this sense? Because this right here seems like because you're very well at it. You're very well spoken. And
Yeah.
you know what you're talking about. It seems like you really have been through.
No.
And so I'm just curious. How did you become this? Like, how did you find this
It's
path?
such a funny thing because, like I said, I had all of these things going for me, and I still was so broken, and I would have these behaviors, and it always felt like it came outside of me. And I didn't like it because I felt as though it wasn't who I was. And not only that, I had a lot of difficulties within my family unit. And not to go into too many details, a lot of things fell apart. And when they fell apart, I knew I had to do something for me. I think what inspired me the most about having going within is watching my grandmother go through dementia. And it was really hard to watch because I saw her dealing with a lot of issues on her deathbed. Things from when she was like 5 years old, and she was starting to tell us about it, and she would scream, "Oh, help me, Jesus. I'm burning in hell. I'm burning." I'm like, whoa, what is going on? And so I truly believe that before she passed, she was dealing with all her so-called demons before she left. And I think that's what a dementia is about, dealing with things that you never dealt with. But I think that, so I said to myself, I didn't want to die holding on to everything, and I wanted to find out why I did the things that I did and why, And so I started this self-discovery thing. I started therapy. I did therapy for a while. That was helpful to a certain extent. I had somebody do an auditing. They weren't with Scientology, but they were with the Nation of Islam, and they were doing auditing. They had a little partnership or something going on. And that's when I first came to the idea of auditing, or in therapy, they call it flooding, where you would relive experience and you'll just repeat it over and over and over and over again until you just get tired of it. And so I had that experience, and the first one is when I witnessed a domestic violence incident at my house, and it was very traumatic. I won't go into details, but it was really traumatic. And when I came out of that state, it had been 4 hours. I lost complete track of time. But in that moment, I was that kid again. And I got to relive that and pull myself out of that place almost. So from that point on, I continued on this journey of self-discovery, gradually grabbing pieces of me. I made the mistake of trying to get people to be accountable. That was angering because really it's not about people being accountable. It's about your self journey because, it happened to you. I started studying Islam and learned the concept of Masha Allah, which is God willed it to happen. And it was something peaceful about that concept because it was basically saying this is how it was supposed to happen. If it was supposed to happen differently, it would have happened differently. So, and then also in the Quran, Allah talks about things that are bad for us is really good for us if we can see it. So it's like, okay, what do I extract out of these bad experiences? I changed my perspective. And instead of being afraid of my fears, I started to face them because, now you knock on the door of fear and you open the door, it's nothing there. Just the thought was there. And so I started facing the fears of who I was. And it took me on a journey where, my special needs son, I placed him in a care home. That was extremely difficult. And after that, I pretty much lost my mind. And I was literally beefing with everybody in my family. And, I was trying hard to be this designer, and I was on front covers and, magazines and newspapers and all over the world, and I still didn't feel complete. And I ended up in Venice Beach. And when I got there, I met a guy who was kind of like on my path too, and we just had something in common. And it sounds crazy, but that day I just slept on the beach, and I ended up there for a few months. I stayed there and slept on the beach for a few months.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like the journey. Mm-hmm. It can take you anywhere. It really is like a wave, and you just can't go against the tide. Mm-hmm. And if you do,
it's death.
It's just all bad. Mm-hmm. Don't ever go against it and what you're supposed to be learning and what life is trying to take you through. Mm-hmm. That's very deep, what you went through. Yeah, that's very interesting. I can't say I have an interesting story like that, so you're unique to yourself. You have a story there.
Yeah, Venice was.
Tell us about that experience on Venice.
Oh man, it was the greatest thing ever. One thing that I can say is that self-discovery is lit. I think that sometimes we're so confined by our fears, we forget to live. We're so coddled by our comfort, that we forget that we have all of these abilities to connect with the earth. We forgot that everything that we have that's made for us came from the planet, and then so it's this disconnect. So, it's something special about Venice Beach. It's a because I love it so much. Venice is like Neverland. It's a place where people go enjoy their lives. I think that it's a sacred place. It's been known as a sacred place. People are drawn there. You see so many people from all around the world there. Beautiful sunsets, people being active and living their best lives. So, and also you could just kind of be yourself. Every day was a new day there. The weather was great. And I was safe. I ended up meeting some homeless people out there who were homeless for various reasons. And I became what they call dead. I was dead. And when homeless people say that, dead means that you don't exist to society anymore. So I went from being this designer that people can recognize to being somebody that you wouldn't even turn around and look at, And it was great because it was almost like this, a little bit of a social experiment to see how people really behave and how much they think that things matter and they don't. So it felt like I was outside the matrix, and I would see people spaz out because they're, racing to get to a stop sign. You're going 60 just to stop. People just bent out of shape and, making assumptions, thinking they're better. So, it was a delusion of my ego to an extent. And I just really just enjoy my life. And after you just stare in the waves for a period of time, it kind of just washes away things and helps you put things in perspective. And I remember sitting there one day, and I had come to the realization of things that had happened to me. And I came to the realization that they weren't fair. But I processed them and said, okay, I'm through that now. But I think the hardest part for me was the wreckage that it caused, because hurt people. And I think the part that people have the biggest problem in when they face these fears is the pain that they've caused others. And so, which is really selfish if you think about it. People on a subconscious level know things about themselves and their own character. But they aren't willing to confront the things inside of them because they don't want to confront themselves. And so because I didn't like certain things about myself, I was able to find the things that happened to cause that, but it didn't relinquish the fact that I had caused hurt to other people. And I think that that was the most painful thing that I had to experience, was knowing that I hurt people who I cared about because of my irrational behaviors, due to trauma. But I have to be fully accountable for what I've done. And that was the hardest part.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to go back to the modeling and how you became a designer, and let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
Where did you start, and where did this journey begin?
The journey of becoming a designer, well, it was something that I always did as a child. I watched my grandma kind of...
Shout out to grandma.
Shout out to grandma. She sewed, and I used to take the scraps and make clothes for my dolls. And then VH1 used to have this show of video fashion they had. And they had, was the era, and the supermodel and Cindy Crawfords and Naomi Campbell's and Armani and Calvin Klein and Donna Karan, right? And they were just like these super people, and I just saw that I wanted to be there. And at the time, it wasn't too many people like me. I went to school. I did my best to do that. And I was in and out of school, and I ended up finishing in Sacramento. And
where did you start from?
I was in Chicago first. I was in Chicago, and I started there. And interestingly, a lot of people thought that I was going to be either a doctor or a hairstylist. I was always creative, hustling, doing, people's nails and hair and stuff. And, it was an assumption that I was going to go to school for that, or because I was smart that I would become a doctor. But, I really got into fashion design, especially towards my junior and senior year in high school. And I did an independent study for sewing, and I went to a couple of design classes, and I helped put some fashion shows on in school and designed some of my friends' prom dresses. I designed my own. And then I started to go to school after that. It's so funny because it's so funny. It's so funny because I didn't really get support, and
Look how you turned out.
I know it's so crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like at the time, because I had my daughter when I was 17, so she was one by the time I went to college. I didn't have really a lot of support, but artists don't really get support from parents and things like that anyway. And so they told me that because I had my daughter, I was able to sign for myself. And so, I could bypass my mom and I can, just kind of do it on my own. And so I did that. And when I finally finished my degree, I took one of my collections and a friend's like, hey, you should put this in my friend's fashion show. And so I did that and everybody loved it. And it just kind of picked up legs and, went out on its own. And then I started doing American Umma because I was studying Islam a lot during that time. I had became Muslim, and
Your company,
American Umma.
American Umma.
And then I just saw like this trend that was gonna be coming in the next 10 or 15 years, and I wanted to create a brand that would reflect that, something that was futuristic. I saw that the Islamic population was going to be younger, and it was going to be one of the most dominant groups in Europe, and how it would affect fashion in the next 10, 15 years. Technology, incorporating that, what was that going to look like, having actual clothes on to use the technology that's going to be interwoven into our clothes. So I first just started messing around with just the fashion, the concept. It kind of took off on its own, and I've been everywhere with American Umma all over the world. But my true passion is to connect that with technology. And so we've been moving towards that direction. I ended up going to the Founders Institute it's the largest pre-seed accelerator in the world. And I did a startup program, and it ended up 36% of the cohort, the companies, they actually graduated from that class. And I was number 1 in my group and number 3 out of the whole class. And so that was the first time I ever thought that this was possible. And another thing is that, for anybody, where's the camera? Anybody. Okay, so for anybody who has a dream and who wants to go after it, it's going to be obstacles and people coming your way. And there was this guy who got in my way in the San Francisco network, which I feel like it's one of the hardest networks to break into, although they really don't have a reason for it. But I was treated very rudely, and I won a competition. And the guy got upset about something, an event that I didn't come to, that I didn't have to go to. And he said some very smart stuff. It's very hard to be out here as a Black woman in some of these spaces, especially the tech space, because there's so few of us. So he took away that opportunity. I won that competition, that pitch competition, the first time I ever pitched. Mm-hmm. But I didn't stop there. I was so mad that he took something that I earned and I deserved because he was in his feelings. And I ended up getting into that program. And the crazy thing about that was that you had to have a very high IQ to get into that because it was in Silicon Valley. And they not only did I pass, they gave me the archetype, entrepreneur archetype of an innovator. That was my entrepreneur type. And when I got into class, I was in there with people who work for like NASA and, they had startups and they were making all this money and they worked for Facebook and they worked for Oculus and, I don't know half of the stuff they was talking about. Like, yeah, put it on Slack and this and the UX, the UI. Like, what are you talking about?
Man.
And so I'm like in this whole new world is male dominated. And here it is, me, little old AU, and they really believed in what I was, the pitch, the direction that I was going in, what I wanted to see, what I wanted. And they said that the founder, Adeo, who was on the cover of Forbes magazine, said that my company was, he thinks it could be one of the most successful companies to come out of FI. And they've obtained over $2.5 billion in funding. So to hear that was just so amazing that, that this vision that I have, that people who actually can see it come to life actually believed in me, and it made me put in perspective like who I really was. Like, I'm the person who's supposed to make this happen. And so I became like, recently I had an investor meeting, and the guy,
Are we allowed to talk about this before we jump into it? I don't want to.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
Is this something where it's like you get in trouble for, like, speaking on?
Oh, no.
Okay,
no,
look,
no.
I just want to. Look, I'm trying to protect the brand. I'm trying to protect the podcast.
No, this
I don't want to get
is
canceled.
good information.
Cancel culture is real, so I ain't even trying to go.
Oh my God, the cancer culture. That's a whole nother
Yeah.
subject.
No, it really is. You gotta be careful. It's nowadays. It's like a lot of things they gotta stay here in your head.
I'm definitely not that person. I don't have a problem defending or standing up for myself or being able to take whatever comes with that. And I think like nowadays, people are so concerned about stuff that has nothing to do with them. And this whole canceling each other out as if we're all supposed to be perfect in this imperfect world that's constantly changing with all these rules and everything that we come with to create this dream of the world, or like in the fourth agreement, the big mayote, this dream of the world that we create. And nowadays, people, they aren't able to handle criticism. Nobody wants a bully. If you talk to a lot of successful people, they'll tell you they had a bully that pushed them. Like this, just like the guy who was being bullied to me. I would have never entered that program. Now, because of that program, I have 10 million shares in my company, and I can offer these to investors. You see what I'm saying? And so, a lot of times that this culture is, people are so sensitive.
Yeah.
Because their egos are so fragile. Nobody knows who they are. Everybody is all of these ideas that everybody throws into your head, and then you're just juggling, trying to figure out, who am I? But in some senses, I think it's kind of cool that we do have a lot of options to choose from, because back in the day, you didn't have that many choices.
Yeah, gosh.
Think about that.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Everything's pushed onto us and is shoved into our faces, like advertisements. It's just right there constantly.
Yeah, it's this documentary that you guys can watch called The Science of Cool or The Marketing of Cool, one or the other. And it's what we watched in marketing, and it's about how to market cool to people. You know, what's cool, what's the end thing, what's rad, what's dope, what's, what's groovy, what's, always they market to the teenager, and the psychological manipulation and magic that goes into marketing. Because these logos that people see, that's magic that you're looking at when you see that. You don't even know that. That's why you can play these games and you could just look at a piece of a logo and you'll know, oh, that's McDonald's, that's Burger King, that's Kmart, or that's Walmart. That's, these are all sigils. They're all magical tools that they're using to program into our minds. And so it's very interesting to know, like, people think they are who they are, but no, you are who these marketers think you are.
You're right. Yeah.
So you think that you're this person because they've identified these different core human values, these reptilian qualities that we have in our animal instincts, not the spiritual side of ourselves, and they market to your lower desires. That's why you have all this lust. These are areas that you're weak in, where you're vibrating low. And that's why you have all these low vibrational frequencies and people really losing their mind because they're operating on a low frequency of material things. That's why nobody's satisfied and they can't get past their ego. It's another thing called the, what is it called?
Can you pass me that drink over there real quick?
Yeah,
sorry.
For sure. This one or this one?
That one. It's like the sage. We burned sage before.
Yeah, we burned sage.
Yeah, so I feel like, oh man, maybe that's why I'm super raspy right now.
Yeah, raspy. Like it's the healing to the world, the intent. And
sigils,
the powerful is exactly
symbolism.
Right. Exactly.
And like you said, people walk around thinking that they know who they are.
Exactly.
But really, they're made the way that marketers
you are
and manipulators
who we make
want.
you. I work in an industry that is highly manipulative.
Right, yeah.
It's one of the dirtiest, most manipulative. We tell people what beauty is. You don't tell us that. And not only that, we go out and we steal your style and we sell it back to you. Okay? I really like trend forecasting. There's somebody you can follow. Her name is Faith Popcorn, and people pay her millions of dollars for her to study culture. We are the culture creators. We respond to, if you look into fashion, and I think it's such a disrespect for fashion nowadays just because it's so disposable. But if you look at fashion, it always shows the signs of the time. Fashion, what's going on, you'll see it in fashion, and so fashion tells us history because it's a response to what's going on in the world, and so if we look at fashion now, you could tell it's a lot going on with women in particular. It's a lot going on with the gender, people having more options for who they choose to be and present themselves to be. But what you're going to see in the future of fashion, since we're talking about fashion, is a lot of digital stuff. It's the part I've been waiting for. The fashion I've been waiting for.
Yeah, I saw your face light up just now.
Yeah, because I'm tired of this stuff. It's like, honestly, think about it. It's 2021 and we still wearing blue jeans and T-shirts. Didn't you think that we was going to be floating, in the sky or something? We supposed to have our Back to the Future moments. But yeah. I feel like we can't have those moments because our clothes suck.
It's like, how can we even get there? And the first thing that we put on our bodies is this.
Yeah, a T-shirt. It's the fashion industry is incredibly harmful to the environment, and we as consumers, we don't respect it. Clothes don't have value because you just pay $2 or $3, $4 for this T-shirt, right?
Some people pay a lot more.
Yeah, but when you pay more, you value it more.
Oh, that.
You see what I'm
So
saying?
okay,
So if I pay $5 for a T-shirt, it's more disposable. If I pay $500 for a T-shirt, I might take care of it better because it costs $500 versus a $5 shirt, which is disposable. But you have to think about everything that comes with that $5 shirt and why it's so cheap. You know, the cotton that's produced, how much water is used to produce this cotton that's then used to create this shirt. 30 gallons of water goes into making one pair of jeans. It's incredibly damaging. The dyes that end up in our waterways, the microplastic that end up in the oceans from us washing, the almost 20 million pounds that end up in the landfill every year because of this fast fashion and consumption. And let's not even mention the unethical labor practices that goes on around the world. And right now, because of COVID, the fashion industry has really, I feel like they're being, karma is happening to the fashion industry right now because of all of its dirty practices and unethical ways about itself. And they're having to redo everything. Because the fashion industry, people don't know, is the second largest polluter in the world. And
I feel like we're talking about diesel versus a battery going towards, it seems like what you're talking about is the direction that that we've been on for so long is actually harming the environment in which we live in, and also it's not helping us move forward in learning any new way of reproducing this and getting maybe a better result that's better for the environment. So tell me a little bit about that side. Is there anything that we can do, like anyone who's listening who would like to somehow maybe not attribute to that big factor what you just mentioned? Like what do you think the next thing is?
well, it's things that the consumer can do and demand. And it's also things that's being done for you. Because the UN has a sustainable development goal. They have 12, 13 of them, 13 now, that they're trying to reach by this 2030 goal. And the fashion industry is becoming a lot more sustainable in its practices. But what you can do is stop buying new, buy used if possible. A lot of things that we buy new, it's not going to necessarily be like that anymore. What you have access to is about to change. So the whole concept of new clothes is going to start morphing into this more custom, going back to custom local labor. You're going to see a lot of local labor come back to America in different places. You're going to see a better budding of local designers being able to, make a living. Because right now it's just all these big companies. But since COVID, powerhouse companies have come down, like J.C. Penney had to file for bankruptcy, Forever 21, Zara. So it's a lot of companies that that struggled, and some of them that are never coming back. Just because the fast fashion model doesn't work. It's going to be more of a, if you're into, entrepreneurship, is to find a company that's doing drop ship and create your own store. You're going to see a lot of that in the future, where instead of you have these companies that have the huge department stores, they're going to allow people to have their own department store and they just ship stuff to customers versus you coming in. So, the way that we shop is going to be drastically different. Also, something the fashion industry has been really working on, and it's been like this race. This is like the golden egg, is the getting the right fit, and allowing customers to be able to get the biometrics of their bodies, and then also having the technology and the AI and the logarithms that can recommend the right clothing for your body type. So I'm working with someone who is in that area and taking all these different pieces and components of technology and putting it into one place and creating this virtual marketplace where you can customize your own clothing on demand.
That's, for someone who does not know anything, for myself,
Yeah.
that is, you just, you put a big, a big thought in my head of so many different things that I never even have thought about, with fashion. For anyone who doesn't know, this amazing woman over here, she makes amazing clothes. She got me on the cover of the magazine with me and my family wearing her brand AU.
Yeah.
And also, my wife's mother. So I got to put that out there. Look, I know it's like, boom, drop it on them, right? But hey,
Bam.
look, besides that, it's about you. No, that's super interesting for anyone who's starting to make, who wants to get into the fashion industry and stuff like that. What would you advise someone starting out? What steps to start taking? I mean, from your experience, and just give your take. I'm a new person. I want to start in the fashion industry.
It depends on how big you want to go, because there's going to be more opportunities for independent designers to have their own collections with local production. Also, technology is a big one. So even for people who have graphic experience, if you want to get into fashion, really, you need to get into tech space. It's gonna be over the next 10 years, the fashion industry is spending $3 trillion on upgrading everything. Like currently, humans are in the process of being replaced by robotics for sewing and AI, biometrics again, the measurement of the bodies, allowing also all the smart fabrics that are going to be hitting the market over the next
Smart fabric. So explain that.
Smart fabrics.
Yeah. So
it's a lot of different, because I briefly got into, I love textiles, and I briefly got into textile engineering, and I really got attracted to conductive threading. So they have where conductive thread is ran through garments, and you can you can play your video game with conductive. I can embroider a video game controller on my arm, and then now I can play the video game with that. That's just an example of something that can be done with conductive thread. Also fiber optic thread. I want to start working with that. The technology has been around for a little while, but I just feel like, let's just put it like this: it's a lot of great technology out there right now, but nobody's doing anything cool with it.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
You're in the pocket, it seems, and you know exactly.
Yeah, like we're gonna have clothes where it's woven with fiber optics, and you'll be able to change you have an app that changes the color and the pattern of your clothes.
That's dope, because I don't have many clothes.
And I would say exactly, you put your outfit on and it's a different outfit, or it can match. I would love to have it match a bag or something, match your car.
Yeah.
And so things where we are communicating with our cars, we're communicating with our house, with our clothes on, our body is communicating with us. A guy I'm working with, he created fabric that creates energy as you walk. It uses kinetic energy.
Oh, kinetic.
Kinetic.
Wow.
So that's like your body.
Yeah,
your
yeah.
body energy to produce electricity, to produce power. And you could power your devices, or some fabric that you can use that, and then it turns into infrared. So you have an outfit on all day that's helping your body stay young.
That
your
is so
skin
cool.
stay young.
That is just so awesome.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can't. Wow. You know,
So-
I'm just thinking like when the aliens come, okay, if they see our raggedy clothes that we have on now, that's probably why they're not here. You know, oh, what do they got on? What the heck is this? They're not smart. They're not intelligent. These are just animals. These are just,
Right.
you know what I mean? But if we had something like that,
Right.
you know what I mean? Maybe they'll be like, maybe they're
Like,
worth
we
coming
might
onto
be
our
cool.
ship. Maybe we'll show them our
Exactly.
spaceship.
If
maybe.
we're not walking around looking like we just walked off Gilligan's Island out of the 1970s. And, that was my thing with American Umma. It's like, what company is going to bring our clothing into the future?
Yeah.
And it's so,
the youth.
exactly.
The youth.
What is it? And also elevate us in our thinking. And that's not going to happen until our clothes do. So now you see, I think I think modesty is important. I think being free and comfortable is important. That's why it's going to be fabric that cools our body. It's going to be fabric that help us, a Faraday cage fabric, where it protects you from frequencies and these 5G waves.
Yeah.
It's very harmful. And so they have fabric that, so I want to create like a bodysuit, like this main bodysuit that provides you protection from radiation. And it's like your everyday, outfit. But they have those fabrics coming out as well. What else is coming out?
How far out do you think we are? Like from seeing
It's
this?
here. It's here.
I mean, like, I haven't seen no one walking around in that.
You
like,
haven't seen it because nobody
when
is
will-
dope. See, what they're doing is they
When
have
can
the
we see that?
technology. We're going to see it once
Like
I
10
get
years,
this
20
funding.
years?
No, you'll be seeing it over the next few years.
Years.
Where it'll be popular at maybe the next 10 years. They're going to have fabric using graphene. Graphene, you guys can look that up.
Graphene, that's I was literally listening to something about graphene. Graphene is graphite.
Right.
Interesting. That I think,
But it's super strong.
yeah, isn't it? It's super light,
It's super light.
and
it's
the way it's
incredibly strong.
in the way it's woven together, you can't really reproduce that.
Exactly.
But
It's almost like carbon a little bit.
and we're gonna wear that at some point. But isn't
They
that super
figure
high?
out that I'm working with the guy who actually
I know
they
it costs
figured
a lot
out
of money
how to
produce graphene. And you can't produce it. They can't reproduce it. It's something they have to.
It's very expensive to produce,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
as
Bring the
it
cost down.
becomes more available, you'll be able to do that, and the fabric can fix itself. So if you cut it, the fabric, they have
You're just blowing my
fabric.
mind right
they
now.
have fabric that does that now. Like you could stick like a pencil or pen in it and create a hole, and the fabric will fix itself. What else?
Like Iron Man's suit. Like
Yeah.
literally like his nano suit, boom, and it comes back
Yeah,
together.
it's nanotechnologies being created right now.
So
I'm
is-
working with somebody who's
wow.
putting nanotech.
You know, what I
into
think is
fabric.
crazy about this is to actually, it's crazy how much you're shedding light on.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still having to wrap my head around all of this, but I think it's a different perception of what we're shown in movies, and then when you actually see it, like finding all the material right for it. It's different, because it's kind of hard to adjust your what you've seen and what you've already seen through like movies and what they've already kind of projected. It just kind of melts, come back together, or certain effects we know it's CGI, we know it,
Right.
whatever. But to see it actually become a real thing, hopefully soon, that I'm seeing it walk around. It's different. I'm pretty sure it's
Yeah.
freaky. It's like magic. Like,
Yeah, like it's
How did that-
possible.
Oh, man.
As AI gets more into fashion, which it is, we're gonna solve a lot of those things, especially with the 3D printing and 4D printing coming soon. Can't wait for that.
4D printing.
So it might be in the future where you have this printed garment that can fit in your hand, and you put it down and just put a few drops of water on it, and you got a whole outfit.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
And it's so funny
It's like
because
Black Panther's suit.
Yeah.
Like he has the necklace, and then like boom, it just all of a sudden it's all around him, and then
Yeah.
like you said with the conductive kinetic energy, also like this technology. I can't believe
Yeah.
this is real, but like he would get hit and it'll absorb the energy, and he's able
Exactly.
to disperse it back. That's crazy. So
Yeah.
you're telling me that at some point in the near future, we can start seeing this, not on like a movie screen. We can
Yeah.
actually just
Yeah, probably within the next maybe 15 to 20 years max.
military. Would love
It's
this.
gonna
They're probably
be time.
doing it.
They have things going on. But especially for space travel. That's another subject. We can talk about that.
Hey,
all day.
look.
But
It's your
like
podcast.
it's gonna be equipment where you create your outfit, and you press a button, and you have a machine in your house. You press a button, you go to sleep, you wake up, and the outfit is made. It's gonna go from more like this big factory place to this kind of custom thing that you have in your house, a machine that you have in your house.
right in your pantry.
Yeah.
just
So
boom.
Amazon right now has a machine that they have a patent for, where they're customizing clothes. And so you'll be able to get a custom outfit. And you're going to start hearing this word a lot more, called bespoke. Bespoke.
Bespoke.
Yeah, so bespoke is just basically custom tailoring. And back in the day, everybody used to get it. A woman usually had to know how to sew, or when you got your clothes made, you went to the tailor. Wow. It wasn't until the Industrial Revolution that we started mass producing clothes. That's why when you look in like the 1940s, you'll look at the pictures and everybody has the same damn suit on, and then that's when they came out with these standardized sizes, but prior to that, clothes were custom made. Like you went to a tailor or seamstress, or your mother knew how to sew and she bought patterns, and that's how they got things done. But then once the Industrial Revolution came and they learned how to do mass production, that's what started mass production of clothes and department stores and the Sears catalog, that people would shop out of.
Yeah. That's a lot of people they just we're born and bred and taught to buy, not to produce. And I'm surprised, because I think that like at the very beginning when we talked about what our purpose is here.
Yeah.
And I always believe that we're supposed to add value to it, leave something behind. And I
Right.
ask everyone this: we have to leave something behind, and which means producing it somehow, some way, making it or producing it. So, what would you like to leave behind? Because you've left amazing impression on me. I'm pretty sure maybe even one person listening, probably you made an impact on them. But what would you like to leave behind?
I always have this affirmation that I say to myself is I inspire others to greatness. And I believe that we all have to face our maker. However, when we're religious spirituality, I feel like we all have to, even if you don't believe in God, you still have to face yourself in the end. I think as a conscious being that you have to face yourself. And for me, I just want to leave this world knowing that I did something to make it better. At least I could say that. Maybe I wasn't perfect, but I tried. You know what I mean? I tried to do this. I could say that, I left a legacy that made the world better. And I think that we all have the ability to do that and to become an inspiration, a source of inspiration to others. And to consistently show that you can achieve your goals while overcoming obstacles, and those obstacles that you have, they're all going to serve you in the end, if you are willing to do the work, and so I hope that I inspire especially people who look like me, people who don't look like me, people who might, think that, their life circumstance prohibits them from growth or from getting something that's theirs. I don't subscribe to the narrative that my race somehow makes me unable to achieve I've achieved everything I wanted to do in my life. And I didn't get the best cards. I mean, it could have been worse. But I think that a lot of times we get wrapped up in this world that's created for us, especially now it's so dangerous.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I just want people to believe that they have purpose. God don't make no junk, my friend always say. Mm-hmm. God don't make no junk, and everything on this planet, all the way down to the ant, has purpose. And I think that when we as humans think that we can live outside of our purpose, that's when depression, anxiety, all these things come along, because you're not living in your true purpose. And when you're living on your purpose, it's like breathing air. It's like you are who you are and who you're meant to be, and you're living for a reason. I don't think that anybody was born to work for somebody else unless you did it great, I do believe that, if every human was given the ability to make their choices, that we all have the opportunity to become great within our own right. And luckily, we're in this country that allows us to do that. So I'm grateful for, being in this country. I'm grateful for everything that I have.
I'm grateful that you took your life and you put meaning into it.
Yeah.
And you focused on developing yourself into an inspirational person and also a knowledgeable person.
Yeah, I'm full of facts. Like they used to come knock on my door back in the day in the hood. I was like the Google in the neighborhood.
Hey. And one of those people knocking at the door was me too.
I know you used to knock on my door for some reason. A lot of people done knocked on these doors. Okay.
Oh yeah.
I've been a mama to everybody, as you know.
You helped me out.
A lot of you've done very well. I'm proud of you.
I'm trying. I'm trying.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of many of your friends, and you and your wife, my daughter, social group, and those are sacrifices that I at one point I felt at one point I felt as though what I got out of making these sacrifices wasn't worth it. Because I gave up so much, and I felt like I had the short end of the stick. But sometimes we have to trust that it's a process, and sometimes we get so caught up. Suicide is up. Why? Because we get caught up in the moment. Not saying that, these are things that takes times to grow. Like, you can plant a seed, and now we have this instant mentality. Like, everything's supposed to happen in 30 seconds or less.
Instacart.
Instacart, this, like, serve me,
DoorDash.
me. Right?
Yeah.
And we don't understand that sometimes things take time to germinate. For you to get a full grown, a blade of grass is a different time than you're going to get a full grown sequoia tree. You see, one might take a few, from seed to growth, it might take a few weeks. This tree takes 60 years. You see what I mean? To reach a full maturity. And so it's different seeds that we have in life. And oftentimes people want things to happen when they want them to happen. But the most important thing is waking up to a new day. And I think that we get so caught up in having all these plans when you only have the day that you're on. And if you're lucky enough to wake up the next day, you have another day to try again. And you don't have to make the same choices. Oftentimes we get stuck in this victim mentality, and especially now where it's all a blame game. Let's blame this, let's blame that, let's blame the past, let's blame this, let's blame this. And then it goes back into what I was talking about this psychological cycle trauma.
Yeah.
That society is pushing into you by these marketing methods and have you thinking these things about yourself, when the only reality is that it is the one. That's the only reality that we go back to. It's one. Look, I believe in Islam, but I also believe in a lot of different things, because it's saying the same thing. We all go back to a source.
Yeah, one source.
That one source. It can't be 5 million sources, because you can't have 5 million without one. Yeah. And if it's nothing, it's always going to be nothing. So it has to be, nothing is the source. You see what I'm saying? And so, we all go back to this source thing, and that's the only reality. Everything else is just something you can play with,
manipulate.
Yeah, it's like, I'm a Capricorn, so we're good with the world and material things. It's you can manifest if you can think of something. Everything so funny. Everything that has and will ever be created ever is already in existence.
Aliens.
It's already in existence. These are just thoughts and concepts that's floating in the air that you can attach to. Okay, so if you're able to focus and zone in, like, as a designer, I can close my eyes and I can connect into source, and I can see how a pattern is made in my mind's eye. And these things, this subconscious mind is so powerful that people don't understand that they're manifesting things through their thoughts. And as a man thinketh, so is he. So all these thoughts that we keep manifesting, because that's the only thing we are. We're connected to spirit through our pineal gland. Some people like, oh, this is all like, no, you really think about it. Like, we leave this body every night when we go to sleep. We're not in this, our consciousness is somewhere else. Where is it? This is just a body. When you die, then where does that spirit go? It leaves and goes somewhere else, so it's a lot of different theories of where it goes, but just in knowing that, it's like we aren't this body, we aren't this experience, we are spirits having these human experiences. And when you really think about it, when you think about time, right, and what's a year, what's a God year, and all these different things about time, it's really, we're here for a snap of time. It's like, if you think about it, it's like you probably jumped in his body and jumped out like a toe in the water.
Yeah.
That's how long we really here. If you think about it, you're not even here that long. And you could be here and just mess up the whole planet, just like dipping, just blow up the whole planet and stuff with your toe in the water.
Oh my gosh. Like
that's what that's what humans do,
Oh, like Hitler. Oops,
Yeah, it's like this dude just golly, But at the same time, I believe that even he had a purpose, good or bad. Like I just feel that I think that God created humans because He likes stories. And I feel like the story is the same. The only thing that changes is the technology. Just people. Back in the day, people had to throw rocks and cheat. Like now, they got Snapchat and like all these different apps. It's still the same story. Like Fufu was still messing around with Cuckoo, and and she got caught to say just now you get caught with your phone. It's like people still dying, getting murdered. People still getting over on each other. I mean, the only thing that changes is technology.
The technology, like you said, when it comes to like I know we were talking about fashion earlier. And with the integration of technology with it, that speaks for everything.
It's true.
And I don't think people realize how important it really is, because we're not from an early age taught these things,
right? And
so we don't understand how. I was laughing so hard, I
started
crying.
So funny.
Because
it's like it's true when you think about it.
I started crying and laughing.
I mean,
but like what you're talking about is I'm surprised I haven't heard anyone else talk like this.
Oh yeah. See, I'm an interesting person. I'm full of a lot of random facts, but they all come together. I'm a futurist. And so, you can't learn about the future unless you learn about the past. And so I'm always very curious when it comes to history, and that will paint the picture of the future. And so if you want to know anything about yourself, you go look at history. And it's a very important factor in where we're going towards the future. And I really encourage, especially people of color in America in particular, to be very aware of who they are and who they aren't, and don't allow society or these different companies try to push a narrative on you that's not entirely accurate, that's going to leave you disillusioned with let me change that. I would love for people to become disillusioned with this society is trying to tell you of who you are naturally in your connection to source. I don't get into all this, black people, that's not my thing. That's not my vibe, because if anything,
that pits us against each other, and
you
don't want to
we're
paint
humans,
that. We're
like,
trying to move forward, and
in the Quran, Allah says that we're made different so that we can know one another. And I think that we all have a story of how us as a people have differentiated, and we finally became all together one as a human family through the discovery of this new land, because they kind of had their own thing going over on Europe and Africa and China and India. They've been trading and dealing with each other for thousands of years. And so when the human family became one, unfortunately, natives, a lot of natives here lost their lives, but that's when we became all connected. And I think that now that we're all together, it's kind of like, I just love God because, yeah, I know God has a sense of humor because I'm like, it's like, what it's like, it remind me like your daddy had all these baby mamas. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, all these baby mamas, and then they finally got all in the house together. Now we all bickering. We didn't grow up with each other. She was raised by her mama was different. God. She was raised different.
You're wrong for this, but you're right.
It's so true. Like now all the kids, when my daddy told me that we could pray like this, my daddy said that this is how we supposed to wear our clothes. My daddy said this is how we supposed to eat. This is what we supposed to eat. Everybody is right in their own way, and now we like all come together so we can get along. Like, okay, well, what did dad teach you? What did dad teach you? Now we have this unique opportunity to come together and all work together. But as long as we continue this separatization, and I hate the way they use black people to do it, because this black white thing is actually a new concept. It's not old. I just hate how black people are being manipulated, and that it's a difficulty within our community to rise above what a curse. And when I say a curse, I say, a curse is just basically words you believe in. So if I tell you like, man, like in the 4 agreements, be impeccable with your word. And if I say, hey man, you're stupid, and you believe that's a curse that you accept. That's black magic. And a lot of times people walk around, especially, black people. I wouldn't say black people in particular, but I would just say in our community, in the African American community, we walk around cursing our children, and then we pass down these generational curses based on what somebody experienced. I had to go through my own healing journey and learn some things about my grandparents and then my great grandma. And then it was like, wait, hey, this is why I'm doing certain shit. Like, like, I don't think that we know how powerful a generational curse is because don't nobody talk about it. Yeah, no, you know what I'm saying? So you just passing down these feelings and experiences to other people. And it's like, we have to break these chains of ignorance and thinking that that's okay, or the thought of having intellect somehow makes you less black, or that if you want to be educated, then you're trying to be white. And I firmly believe that the world the way it is was a combination of all of us in different types of ways, and we all have a right to it. So to exclude ourselves from this prize, which is just absolutely ridiculous, because you have to live in it. So we could go back and like, what, it should have been different. Like, and nobody's going to Africa and having a fit with them because they had an attitude the slavery ended. And actually, that's the reason why they got colonized. Go look at it. The reason Africa got colonized is because Europe abolished slavery. And when slavery was abolished, I don't know how we got on this subject, but I thought it was an interesting thing. I learned about this.
You're taking us back.
Man, look, when did you know that when slavery was abolished, that's when they started this whole concept of this ideology of white supremacy, of like the races being, that's what created this separatism between black and white. because slavery wasn't about black and white, really. It was about resources. You know, black bodies, they had a lot of slaves in Africa because they were already practicing slavery.
Resources.
Yeah.
Materials.
You know, and so really, like, you know, when I look, and people might get upset about this, I don't give a shit. But really, you know, it wasn't personal. You know, it wasn't personal. Like, you know, this was something that they did in Africa. It was a major source of income for a lot of people. And they were quite upset when slavery was abolished, because that was their money. You know, they had profited quite a bit because once the Europeans started adventuring out into the world, coming into their awakening, the Renaissance, and you know, this they came in a rise from out of these dark ages, right? And they took back some of their lands, which had been occupied by black Muslims, you know, and you had huge Islamic states and empires all over Africa and the Middle East, when Europe was like, you know, in the dirt, you know. And so, you know, one of the things that they did have was, you know, slavery was practiced in a different type of way, of course, but that doesn't make it better to me. But it was the source. Slavery has always been the oil for producing these great empires throughout the world.
You like your plastic bottle with your Lipton drink. You like your clothes with the pictures of the flowers on it. You like, you know, you like the dyes you put in your hair. You like, you want all these makeups and stuff, you know, like all of these sorts of different things that come together, you know, comes from, unfortunately, like, you know, hard work.
And, you know, and so.
Some hard beginnings, too.
Well, that's the thing, is that, you know, black bodies were the oil. They actually used to be.
Like the charcoal.
Look, get this. Slaves used to be white. Slaves came from the Slav area. That's why it's called Slav.
Wow, I didn't know that.
They were white. That's where the slaves came from.
Wow.
Yeah.
You educated me.
Exactly, yeah.
A lot of things today, man. You just blowing my mind.
It's true. They came from, slavery was very widely practiced. If you learn about the Mali Empire and Massa Musa, who had an extreme amount, it's still
he was
no
the
person.
richest. The richest.
Exactly. So, but what happened? How did his wealth? See, what happened is, and you see this problem in Africa now with the tribalism and how black people sell each other out. Yeah. You know, it's just something that, but you know, you go to Europe, they don't like each other. You know, when you get to America, you're white, but if you ever travel and go to Europe, they don't like each other. You know,
it's
so
strange.
It's kind of weird, you know, black white thing, that's an American thing.
They even do it like with the U.S. thing, like, oh, you're American, oh, okay, and like, you know, go to other countries, like.
But everybody
it don't
likes
even matter about race, and sometimes, you know, like sometimes it's just that's just where you're from, and they are, you know, like. But so, have you done a research on your specific background, like where your roots have, you know?
No, I haven't done a DNA test. I do know that I'm related to Princess Diana. That my grandmother, she was a Spencer. That was her last name. They have a coat. She lost everything for love, which unfortunately didn't work out for her. It's really a sad story. And she gave up everything for this man who didn't treat her well. So Princess Diana was one of her cousins. I can't remember first, second, third cousin, something like that. I don't know. But yeah, that's true. That's a true story. So I know that about her. I know my I'm a Gholar, so it's one of the largest U.S. families in America. with the same last name. They don't know really where it came from, but we can trace one of our ancestors back to Nat Turner, as being one of the spiritual advisors that kind of helped Nat Turner with the rebellion. So the slave rebellion. So, I got a lot of rebel blood in my spirit.
That's why you're a Capricorn too, probably.
It's true. It's true. I'm a rebel.
Well, that explains a lot about you and summing you up. Where can people find you on, on the platform, social media platforms? Where can we find you at?
I'm on Instagram with American Umma. That's UMMA. Latiya Gholar. That's LATIYA. Last name GHOLAR. I've been low key on my social media lately, just because I just been learning and growing, and so yeah, you can find me there. Reach out to me if you want to email me, joinaunation@gmail.com. I probably could talk all day about random stuff.
Hey, look, but this is a good introduction, though, because people get to know you in depth,
cool.
personal. And then, of course, when you come back down here, I'll get you in.
Okay.
We'll catch up. We'll talk about all the new things that
I'll
you're
talk
going
to
through.
you about the fashion, the digital fashion that's
I'm
coming.
interested in that. I literally don't have that many clothes.
Well,
So if I could change the color I just pull up my phone, just hit an app. Boop, boop.
First of all, you're not gonna have a phone.
It's gotta be like the way consumers consume things, right? So it's gotta come. You gotta boom.
No,
first off, no.
First
no
of all,
phones.
the phone. Thinking about the phone now is gonna be like thinking about the big ass TVs that you needed 5 people to help you move.
Oh man, like the projector.
Okay, because phones are about to disappear. We'll probably have phones for about maybe another 3 to 5 years, and they're gonna be gone.
It's gonna be Neuralinks, all chips in our heads.
That's the ultimate goal. But the next year the glasses are gonna, like, as we speak, a world is being created for you guys.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, it's a world, an AR world being created, and that's gonna be clothes. The clothes is gonna be digital clothes, like digital filters, and we're gonna have the glasses on. And if I have my filter on and you have your filter on, you can look like a dinosaur wearing some Pumas walking down the street.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
You're right. Well, hey, look, I've got a lot of questions, but hey, look, this leaves for another episode. But hey, look. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode. You guys can stream this on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, whatever you desire. Or you could watch this version on YouTube, obviously, the video version.
Just keep doing up the great work, and hopefully this helps somebody.
Hey, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're amazing. Okay, I love you.
You're amazing. I love you too.
And you're doing great things. So don't just fly away from me.
Of course not.
Of course I got your grandkids.
You got my grandkids. Okay,
so
you're doing a great job. Great husband. I'm so happy for you. I'm proud of you guys.
All right.
Okay.
You guys, stay tuned.
Stay tuned.